A function is a bunch of statements that does something. Okay, that's the definition of function. But what does that mean? First, let's go see how we can define a function, how we can create it in Python. Use the keyword def, which is for definition, and then you use your function name. So function name, then a parentheses. A function can have parameters, which we'll talk about in a minute, but for now let's say close parentheses, colon, and here you can have your statements. Remember, in Python, for us to group a bunch of statements together, we use a tab. So this is a tab. Okay? In other languages, you use curly braces like this. That means this bunch belongs to this function. But in Python, we don't have curly braces for this purpose. So we use a colon and a tab. Okay? So, okay, keyword def, function name, parentheses, and your statements. You can have something else. Let's say def, we want to create a function that adds two numbers together. Okay, we're going to call it add, and I'm going to say a comma b colon colon, and I'm going to say print a plus b. What does that mean? We call these two parameters, sort of like an input for your function. Why do we do that? Because these are placeholders. This function has no meaning unless you call the function. So I'm going to call it. How to do that? Use the name and the parameters. So I'm going to call add, then parentheses. Which number do you want to be put in A? I'm going to say 2, comma, and which number for B? I'm going to say 3. So this 2 will be copied into A, and 3 will be copied into B. So 2 plus 3 will be printed on the screen. So the point is, a function can have between 0 to n parameters. But this still doesn't make much sense. Okay, this is how we define a function. We use a function name. We may have parameters. But so what? Let me show you what I mean. Let's transition into VS Code. Def add a and b colon, as you can see, a tab, print a plus b. Now I'm gonna hit F5 to run this program. As you can see, the program ran and everything was fine, but I don't see anything. Why not? Because a function has no meaning unless you call it. You use the name, parentheses, and if you have parameters, you gotta give it something. So I'm gonna say 2, comma 3. F5, and now I can see 5 printed on the screen. But my question is this: why would I do that? Why did we create that function? If I want to print something and add two things together, why create a function like this? I'm going to say print 5 plus 5. Okay, wasn't that easier? So this is much easier than this. And my answer is, if you want to add two numbers together, you'd be right. Yeah, this is much easier. And please don't make a function. So apparently this function is for very specific purposes. Like what? Let's go to our whiteboard. Let's clean this up. Suppose you want to divide two numbers together. As you know, if you want to divide A by B, this B cannot be 0, because then the answer is infinity. It's not defined. So I'm gonna have to say if B does not equal 0, colon, then we're fine. Print A divided by B. Else, colon, I'm gonna print B cannot be 0. Something like that. Okay. We still don't need functions, we can do this, right? But what if you wanted to do this 100 times during your programming? Then what's gonna happen? So this is 4 lines, 100 times 4, it's gonna be 400 times. So isn't there a better way? Let's go see that in code. So I can say print 3 divided by 2. Let's delete that. F5, and I can see the answer. Problem comes if the 2 is a 0. So let's create two variables, A 5 B equals 0. If B doesn't equal to 0, then you can do this, A divided by B. Else, print B cannot be 0. Okay, F5, and it says B cannot be 0. But this will happen only once. What if I have 1,000 lines of code and I want to divide numbers by each other, and I want to do that 100 times? So what I can do now is create a function, def, I'm going to call it division. I'm going to give it 2 parameters, A and B. You can call it whatever you want, call it apples, you know. So x1, x2, just to be different. It doesn't matter, num1, num2, whatever. Give it a name which is understandable to you. All right, so I'm going to say if x2 does not equal 0, then we're good. We can print A divided by B. Else, we're going to print second number. This is called left hand side value. This is called right hand side value. So you may see this, left hand side, right hand side. This is something programmers do, but we're not going to do that. I just wanted you to know. Okay, so else, second number cannot be 0. Now if I want to use that, let's comment these all out. Let's say I have 1,000 lines of code and I'm going to do this 100 times. Well, no problem. Well, here I said A and B. No problem. I can say division, give it the number 2 and 0. Let's say a couple of lines later you want to still do division again, 4 and 2. A couple of lines later you want to do division again, and I'm going to give it 5 and 2. F5, and everything is working perfectly. This was 0 and it says it cannot be 0. This is 2 and this is 2.5. So that's why we use functions, because you want to do something repetitively throughout your code. So you can simply group all those statements and give it a name, then call the name, and magically it's gonna happen. So how does this parameter work? This 2 will be copied in x1, this 0 will be copied in x2. So everything they do will be on 2 and 0. Next time 4 will be copied to x1 and 2 will be copied to x2, and so on. There are more benefits to functions. For example, this function makes your code more readable, because instead of reading this 4 lines of code 100 times throughout your code, you can simply see division. Oh, I'm gonna divide. Okay, actually divide would be a better name instead of division, but whatever. Okay, so it's more readable and it's easily maintainable, you see, because if there is any change or update, you can simply do it once and you're fine. Let's just say for some magical reason we cannot divide by 1. If we're gonna do that, then we can simply change our function. This function is called on other lines and we don't care because we changed it here. Now this change will be applied everywhere. But if you have copied this code in 100 places, then you should have searched in 100 places and changed that 0 to 1. So you see, it's more readable, it's maintainable, much better, and it's good engineering. Now there is a lot more about functions that we're gonna go through, and after that we're gonna do some cool things with functions.